6 years ago we moved into a new house on this estate, and on the first floor there is a nice balcony that looks out and catches the sun in the afternoon. It's a pleasant place to sit. Unfortunately, the decking had not been fitted well. Insufficient room had been allowed for expansion, and consequently in warm weather the decking had buckled and split. So it was time to rip it out and replace it. And during removal it became obvious that the decking had not been fitted well. First of all, at the edges there was insufficient support for the decking. The frame had just been made with wood, and that wood would sit in water for a large part of its life and slowly go rotten. And where the frame had to be supported on the deep channel part of the flat roof, small pieces of wood had just been screwed on and they had split and started to go rotten. So it was really a pretty awful job. Removing the decking showed that the support frame wasn't even located laterally and was free to move around. There was a drain hole in the corner to drain the water away. Having stripped everything off, this is what it looked like. Unfortunately, the slope on the flat roof wasn't quite right, and so there was some puddling of water after rain, but there was not much I could do about that. A more serious problem was that some of the screws used to secure the decking had gone through the wood and had started to pierce the membrane. So one of the first jobs was to apply some silicone sealant to block up these holes. I chose to use some material from EnviroBuild. First of all, their Manticore lumber, which is a plastic version of wood which wouldn't go rotten if it was soaking wet all the time, and then their Hyperion decking material. This is a piece of the Manticore lumber. It's basically polypropylene with some high density polyethylene, and there are a few bits of rubbish inside, and some of these bits of rubbish can be metal, so you need a tungsten carbide blade on your chop saw to cut it. I chose the Frontier range of decking. This is a section of it. It's solid, so it should be pretty long lasting if installed properly. This is one of the rubber mats that I used. They're 3mm thick, cut from a large sheet, about 100 by 150 millimeters in size, and they were placed on top of the flat roof, and then packing spacers were used to support the frame to get the right level. So here you can see one of the sections of the frame supported on its rubber mat with some wedges to get the level right. In the deeper part of the flat roof I used further bits of Manticore cut to the right size, again on the rubber mat, but supporting the frame at the right level. And for the joints I used some expansion brackets to allow for a bit of movement of the Manticore. It does have a significant expansion coefficient, so you need to allow for a bit of movement. And where there's a lateral join like this, or a butt join, again I use the expansion brackets to allow for a bit of movement. So here's the frame finally fitted and in place, ready to receive the decking. There was a gap left between the frame and the edges of the balcony to allow for any movement. A gap of about 15 millimeters. I was installing this during quite hot weather, 20, 25, 30 degrees. So if anything, it's going to be contraction rather than expansion. So I think this 15 millimeters should be quite adequate. So fitting the decking was quite straightforward using the plastic clips that are supplied. The material wasn't long enough to go right along the 5 metres, so I had to have some joins, and these butt joins were staggered. The Manticore material was wide enough to allow 2 clips to be fitted onto one piece, so that made the job quite simple. I allowed 8mm gap between the butt joints, again to allow for movement, because the Frontier decking has quite a significant expansion coefficient as well. I also left about 15mm at the end of each board, again to allow for expansion in case of very hot weather. So that's the job finished. Along the edge I had to cut a piece down its width using a table saw just to complete the job, and those bits were screwed down with screws which had the same colour as the slate Frontier decking material. So that's it really. It turned out to be quite a straightforward job. Nice materials, and hope you've enjoyed it and it's been useful. Thanks for watching.